my name is Finn,
And I'm Maeve.
and today we're talking about.
Film, directing, and that sort of thing.
And here we are. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's kind of funny because I'm starting this very formally, but we've been like very very good friends.
Yeah,
Like best friends for like 8 years.
that's crazy. In like a couple of years, it's going to be a decade.
That
we're,
is
we're getting old.
crazy. Yeah. No, I was thinking about how long ago 2016 was.
Yeah.
And specifically like how much YouTube
Yeah.
has changed and stuff for the better, I think.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, wow, that was so long ago.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we've worked together on a bunch of projects, but I would say most notably the short film that you made, that I was in, that
Yeah.
our friend Ian was in, called Heart, which was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We started filming 2 years ago.
Yeah. We
Which
were
is
like,
also crazy.
I think around 2 years ago, we were doing those first shoots. Like, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, time flies.
But that was, if I'm remembering correctly, that was your first like big directing
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, totally.
You've been into film as long as I've known you. I'd say probably forever.
I'd say that like that's maybe the first childhood dream I had. Like every other like career option that I developed in my little brain at like age 5 like kind of went out the window. Like, no, I'm not going to be an astronaut, but filmmaking was the one that kind of stayed, and I kept coming back to it over and over, and it didn't become like a childhood dream like the rest of the things.
Yeah.
That's kind of why it became so comforting to me, was because like I felt that was like a constant through my life in a sense.
Yeah.
Which led to Heart feeling like it was a childhood dream to make that happen. Which I think that was an honor to partake in, for sure.
Totally. Yeah, and I definitely could tell in the passion you had for the work, and it was really fun and creatively fulfilling to work on. For sure. I guess it's kind of hard to talk about, your interest in film or your directing style or whatever without going into like your influences.
Totally.
So who are your like major influences? I mean, I know.
Yeah.
But for the audience, who are your major inspirations and influences filmmaking?
You're right. You're right about that. It's hard to watch Heart and like not pick up on like, this is definitely someone who likes John Carpenter.
Right. Right, exactly.
Like right down to like the lighting choices. That's kind of a like, that was me combining the methods of like John Carpenter with Dario Argento in a lot of ways. When I made Heart, I was going into it with like the intention to make it kind of, peering into later in the conversation, kind of Tobe Hooper, kind of like the documentary style that a lot of my favorite classic horror films have, where it's a lot grittier, but I don't think that came through in the final product, and we ended up with something a lot more gloomy and like a lot more theatrical, I think. In such a sense that like, I think what became more apparent was kind of like the gloominess of like the theatrical lighting and all that stuff. And the lighting, I think, became like a massive part of that film's identity.
Oh, definitely.
That was like, that's one of my favorite things about it, is how it was lit as a scene, as a film. And like, I feel like that's where a lot of the influences that went into that film came from, was like John Carpenter, and especially I remember on set, there was one day, I think we were filming the Heart Room scene, and I was like setting up the red lights in like that basement area. A year later, I drove by that place with my friend, and somebody was getting married at the Heart Church. at the church that the Heart Room was in.
That's crazy. 'Cause
Yeah.
that church is like really creepy.
It's a creepy place, yeah. So like, anyway, when we were filming that scene, I was like talking to someone who was setting up lighting, and I was like, I just love filling up entire rooms with one color, and Annika cheekily was like, Maeve, do you like Dario Argento? And I was like, your castmate is named Dario. What do you think? I am such a fan, I named a character after him.
We also can't talk about your filming, your directing inspirations without talking about Sam Raimi.
Oh, yeah.
Did Sam Raimi's style influence Heart at all?
I think Sam Raimi's philosophy absolutely influenced Heart, where it's kind of like the entertainment value is like the priority in a lot of ways, but also like a part of Sam Raimi's filmmaking that I have only ever heard Bruce Campbell himself talk about before is how Raimi takes his time with very horrific scenes. I think like that's a very vital element, at least of like the first couple Evil Dead films. There's a lot of like sitting around and waiting in this fucked up environment,
Right?
You know, like those very long tracking shots that enhance like the gruesomeness of things.
You get to like know the space
Yeah,
that the characters are in. Like
yeah,
the
totally.
cabin in Evil Dead. It's funny because the cabin like doesn't really make any sense
Yeah,
because like physically.
yeah.
Because it looks tiny from the outside, but obviously.
And they
like,
just like added like a whole thing on the back of it.
There's a
Yeah.
very famous shot in, I think it's Evil Dead 2, where he's being chased by the creature, and
he like gets inside of the wall.
he runs through like 5 different hallways.
Yeah.
So many rooms. It's supposed to be a tiny, like basically 2-room cabin.
Yeah.
And he's running into like new areas for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But it doesn't actually matter.
You still get like the atmosphere
Because
of how horrible the cabin
you
is.
understand the space.
Yeah.
Yeah. This awful, 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 awful cabin.
Yeah, totally. And it's like I feel like that was a big influence on Heart. Was like I really tried to slow the scenes down and like take time with them. And also just I think watching Sam Raimi's films, there's a very important lesson to learn in that, which is not taking yourself too seriously. You know, and like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I think Heart was kind of an exercise in that, because if I took myself too seriously, that would make for a miserable time for everybody.
Yeah, and I think that's for a lot of lower budget films. Obviously, we had like a very low budget.
I think we clocked in at $1,800 something dollars.
Yeah. So, like, we had super low budget, and I feel like a lot of low budget films fail when they try to take themselves too seriously.
Totally.
Like, you have to recognize the circumstances you're in, budget-wise, and embrace it through making it entertaining.
And you remember I had to contend with that head on, like when we did that first batch of filming and just
Yeah.
didn't turn out. And I remember our assistant director gave me a firm talking to the next day
And sometimes
for
that-
like 3 hours. And
Sometimes that has to
yeah,
happen.
it was about that. It was
and-
about, you know, you're taking yourself too seriously and you're like getting mad when you can't adapt your imagination perfectly.
Right. Just because, I'm sure you'd agree with me, just because you don't, when you're filming, you don't take yourself and your job too seriously, that doesn't mean you're not making something meaningful.
That doesn't mean it's not profound. You
Doesn't
know,
mean
like,
you're not putting effort into it.
totally.
It
yeah.
just means you're recognizing. It's not, I'm not taking myself seriously. It's, I'm not taking myself too seriously.
Oh, absolutely.
So
yeah.
you're adjusting your level of like professional and emotional commitment and investment to the circumstances you are in.
Yeah.
So it's recognizing that and not letting that exceed your circumstances, as opposed to it doesn't mean I don't care at all. I'm not putting in effort. I'm not making this meaningful. I'm not making
So
this
true.
profound.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like that's kind of part of why I've been moving back into film is like because I kind of moved away from it a bit when I was like going into college and like I feel like when I'm doing solitary matters like writing, then it's so easy for me to take myself so seriously that it's not that the other people around me get miserable. It's that it's like insufferable for me.
Yeah.
And I feel like with film, you don't really get a chance for that, like, you know, like William Blake, I am a prophet. I will justify the ways of God to men. You know, it's like, I think that was John Milton, not William Blake, but
It's an awesome quote.
but you know, you don't get those chances to like, or at least you shouldn't. If you're doing it right, you shouldn't get those chances to like take yourself that seriously. I think starting out, because like Heart was my first like film that I made. It was like my first big effort that I like put together a lot of. But I would say that my first entry into making films was probably the Slenderverse, and was like,
right.
Yeah.
How could I forget?
and I think the Slenderverse teaches you that pretty early on. You can't get anything to your original vision when you're making a Slender series. Maybe like sometimes with like a big film production, even something as small as Heart, you can get some things to your vision. But
it'll never be 1-to-1.
And with the Slenderverse, your vision kind of goes out the window as soon as you start filming the first episode, you know? And then it just becomes totally beholden to your surroundings and what happens to your production.
North Clear 30, which is the Slender series you created, and I've acted in.
It's almost over.
With.
The final video is in post.
It's gone on 7 years?
7 years.
7 years.
2017. This August it will be 7 years old. My baby.
And North Clear 30, the plot has changed so many times.
Yeah.
For the better. Each time, I think. But
oh yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Because like the original endings just would not have worked. I think like making that sort of thing is an exercise in letting your circumstances define your story, and that's not as much of a death sentence as I think a lot of like artist types tend to think.
Right. I think that's just part of the creative process.
Yeah, totally.
And I think having that humility to say, oh, like, part of my original vision or my original vision isn't working out and I need to change it.
Yeah,
That's
totally.
something that I think every filmmaker goes through. It's something that, like, I certainly have gone through when I've worked on short film stuff.
Totally.
And, I mean, it's just how it is.
And I don't want to be like a Nolan type. I don't want to be like a Kubrick type, you know?
Running your actors into the ground and
200 takes.
Yeah. Yeah.
For one shot of Halloran looking up at the ceiling and being scared.
200 takes of that. Yeah.
200 takes when it's appropriate, when something's really hard to do, and you use the one where you do it right the first time.
Oh, yes, especially in circumstances that we've been in where, like, our actors are not being paid. They're
totally.
because they're friends with you and they're helping out, which is great, and that's totally legitimate labor, but it's also labor you have to respect.
Totally.
Obviously.
And part of that respect is with agency, really.
Right.
And is with, like, you know, giving the actors the chance to define their characters.
Yeah. I would, as we talk more about filming and our influences and stuff, I'd love to ask you about what you brought here today and why.
I have brought. I know that like the bringing something related to the topic is like a tradition for this series, and I was really struggling to think of one, but I brought Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This was 1974, if I'm not. Yeah, 1974. Big influence for me, and it's getting warmer outside.
I see.
Yes. So every time it gets to summer, I watch this movie.
Certainly a summer movie.
It is, yeah. We need more summer horror films, I think, because I think summer can be terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, just like being outside. Like...
Yeah, and like death by exposure, you know. You run out of gas in the middle of Texas. You don't know when a chainsaw massacre is going to happen.
Yeah, it could, at any
It
time.
could happen
could
anytime.
strike. Yeah. That movie, I watched it with you.
Yeah.
The first time. Like 2 years ago, probably.
It was like probably while we were making Heart.
Yeah,
I think I was
and
mining it for influence.
I liked it. I just spoilers for a movie that 50 years.
50. Oh, you're right. I didn't think of that. Yeah.
Wow. The spoilers for a
Wow.
movie that came out 50 years ago.
Yeah.
But I'll never forget the moment that I realized they're like grandpa, who looks like a mummy. He looks like a ghost. He's sitting at the table the whole time. It's like covered in like gray dust.
Yeah,
It's
like
alive.
literally like a fucking melted candle.
Yeah.
And then like I just remember you being like, "What?"
But that movie is obviously great because of how messed up it is.
Totally.
But it like keeps you guessing. Like I had no idea what was going to happen next
Yeah.
because of how like disgusting.
Yeah.
In an artistic way, not like in an exploitative way, but like
Totally.
disgusting.
Yeah.
A movie it is. And yeah.
I feel like it that is also part of like the spontaneity of it.
Yeah.
As I understand it, I don't know a whole lot about Tobe Hooper's life, but this kind of generation of horror filmmakers, I would lump Tobe Hooper in with like George Romero and such as like kind of overtly political horror filmmakers of
yeah.
like the late 60s and early 70s, and like that time period, a lot of these filmmakers were influenced by such things as like, you know, Tom Savini started working with like gore effects, using things that he had seen and learned from being a war photographer. And I feel like this whole generation of filmmakers carries that with them. A lot of them were influenced by just like this desecration of media, you know. Whichever historical event you want to point to as like the thing that like stole the innocence away. Like
I'm sure Vietnam had something to do with it. The first war basically broadcast live.
Totally, absolutely.
And obviously, you know, horrifying images.
Yeah.
And
Zapruder film and such.
Right, the Zapruder
Yeah.
film, but also, you know, civil rights protests and college
Yeah.
protests and just like violence on the streets of America, which had
Totally.
always been there,
Yeah,
obviously,
totally.
but had not been broadcast to I don't
Like
know,
comfortable families and like their
I don't
suburban
want to say
homes.
the bourgeois, but like just people, not people, but like people that were above
Like picket fence.
like middle class and above white America, basically.
Yeah.
Like
The
what
holdover
what
of,
the
like, the-
United States was designed for.
Yeah.
At the time,
Totally,
being
absolutely.
exposed to the violent reality of the United States for everyone else.
And in that time period, you saw film, and especially like what scared us in horror, kind of change over from like these elevated fears, like in the 60s especially, where the only departure you got from that elevated fear was Psycho.
Elevated fears like monsters and stuff. So
Like,
it's kind
yeah.
of supernatural almost.
Day of the Arrested Still,
Yeah, yeah,
you
yeah.
know, like I feel like you get to Tobe Hooper and he pulled a lot of Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its documentarian aspects from like the experience of being a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
At least as I might be misremembering, but I'm pretty sure it was due to like, you know, his experience working in the news and like being like desensitized by travesties in media. And I feel like what he took into that from his experiences into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre inspired me in a sense, because I think like you can't watch it and not feel that. Like you feel like you're being exposed to something that will desensitize you.
Yeah.
And it also is very like photographic, and it's very like we went out and saw this cannibal family, you know.
Well, I feel like there's very little. There isn't a lot revealed.
Totally.
A lot is still a mystery, not in like a supernatural way, but just like you don't really learn a lot about.
You don't
the
even know their
weird
names.
family.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. You're just like, oh, this is just like a weird, gross situation that these people have found themselves in.
Totally.
I don't really know what's going on, but it sucks.
And like it kind of it's a good example of when like horror franchises will do the thing where they prioritize focusing as the sequels go on like their like gross perpetrators than like on the characters that we actually know the names of in this film.
Right.
And it's like I think that entire generation of horror from Tobe Hooper to like, you know, even like the documentarian style that Friedkin brought to like The Exorcist. Like I think there's a lot in that time period that has always kind of inspired me, for sure. And like there's kind of that like right down to like that opening scene with like the narration. I don't remember who did the narration, but I remember you pointed it out to me.
Was this in which movie?
This is in Texas Chainsaw.
I don't even remember that.
It was like some notable like voiceover person. You can like freeze frame on me and like ding me and be like, actually the person is named this.
I'm gonna look it up because I'm curious now.
Yeah. I remember you pointing it out to me and you were like, wait, is that ... And I was like, I don't know who that is.
I'll look this up and then we can move on, but Texas Chainsaw.
The cast is so small you'll probably find him there.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, okay. John Larroquette.
Yes. Yes.
That's funny. That's actually really funny. He's just a really famous comedian.
I say.
He's on like Night Court. Anyway,
I think I said Nightcore for a sec.
Oh no. Oh god, oh no. Get out of my head. No, the show Night Court from the 90s. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say your favorite horror film of all time is? It's a hard choice.
It's always a battle between Evil Dead 2 and Halloween. I don't know.
Right.
It's like I've lately
Both
been feeling
fantastic.
Yeah. It's hard to say, but I've lately been feeling Halloween. Right now, Halloween's on top, but it changes on like a pretty frequent basis.
Maybe it's the Ventura, right? Where was it filmed? In California?
That was in Pasadena.
Or Pasadena.
Yeah.
Duh. It's the Pasadena feel, but that feels like a summer movie. That does not feel like a Halloween movie.
Especially, what's weird about it is, like, to me, it's always felt very Halloween, but when I got my 4K copy of it, I grew up on, like, there's a TV cut that exists of the first Halloween film because it was, like, not long enough with, like, the sex scenes cut out to fit its time slot. So while they were filming Halloween 2, they filmed extra scenes that...
For Halloween 1.
Yeah. And they just kind of relate to the plot twist in Halloween 2, so they're not canon anymore. Like, that version of it is, like, totally just, like, gone, because they hint at, like, the Laurie sister thing. Which now, like, watching the new ones, it's like that's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
But that was the one I grew up on, and those scenes in, like, exterior daylight Pasadena still have, like, a very orange look to them. And when I picked up the Halloween 4K, they don't have that anymore. And it's, like, kind of... It looks comparatively blue when really it's just very neutral shading. So it's, like... It feels more like it that way.
I remember liking Halloween 2.
I like Halloween 2 as well.
But I liked Halloween 2.
I can see why John Carpenter hates it, but I like it.
Why does he hate it?
He made the plot twists out of writer's block, mainly, and, like, he just wasn't a fan of it. There's an interview where he's like, I think Halloween 2 is an abomination of a movie, and it's a horrible movie.
Oh, it's not that bad.
It's not that bad. Yeah, there are worse Halloween films. It could be Halloween Resurrection.
Yeah, well, I guess the guy who... I mean, Was this before or after he made The Thing? Probably after.
This
so.
was right before.
Oh, really?
This was
Okay.
like the year before
Well,
he
I
made
was
The
just
Thing.
say like you make The Thing and kind of everything kind of is tiny in comparison.
What a heavy load Einstein must have had. It's yeah, totally. Like John Carpenter makes The Thing and then watches like Halloween 3 and he's like, oh, pathetic, miserable film. Why am I doing like a Hitchcock for John Carpenter?
Emigrates to UK, naturalizes a British citizen. I was talking to someone last night about how much they live, but I forget what their search is. But They Live's a great movie too.
I love They Live
Also
so
seen
much.
They Live, Prince of Darkness.
Prince
No.
of Darkness is crazy.
Yeah, Prince of Darkness is crazy.
I watched that movie for the first time while I was really sick because I had just gotten my COVID booster in like
That's
April
a
2021.
crazy movie to watch.
So
right?
I was like dying of a fever, like very delirious, and I put in Prince of Darkness for the first time, and I was just sitting there like,
Prince of Darkness is a crazy movie.
yeah, I was just like,
It's really good though.
yeah, it was a bad idea to watch it with like 100-degree fever, but
Did people? It's like one of his lower rated movies, right?
oh yeah, this was like during Carpenter's like career decline.
It's good.
It's really good. I can see why it wasn't a box office smash, but like,
Yeah, I mean, kind of like I just said, compared to The Thing, it's kind of like everything.
few
kills.
things beat The Thing.
That movie is so. It's so good that the X-Files made a ripoff of it.
There are a few great movies that have that status where the X-Files just like kind of riffs off of it.
Yeah.
Isn't there one where I don't remember? Isn't there one where Brad Dourif plays a character like his one in Exorcist 3?
I know Brad Dourifson has showed up in the X-Files. I'm sure that there's I just remember there's literally a episode of the X-Files where they go to the Arctic, and there's
Yeah,
it is a little bit
I remember
different.
that one.
There's
Yeah.
well, no, is the thing alien is like buried under ice, right? It's ancient.
Yeah, and it's like it in the Carpenter film, it was like dug up by a previous crew, kind of like hinting at the past movie.
Right.
But like, yeah,
And it's been there for like a long
Like-
time, right?
like since before humans, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure.
And so in the
Millions of
X-Files
years.
episode, it's like they're drilling in the ice cores, and they've like find these. You remember they find these little
yeah.
worms.
Weren't we joking about that when we watched it? Because like, doesn't Mulder
hadn't-
like get like aggressive and like, doesn't Mulder get like aggressive at Scully? We were talking about it being like the misogyny disease. I don't remember.
That is funny. I think I remember that. It's like the worm gets in you, and then you become aggro, and
Yeah.
it's not you don't get assimilated like the thing, but
Yeah.
like it's who's infected, who's not, who's real and who's not.
Among Us.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then they have to like, well, we gotta blow up this whole facility because we can't let it get loose,
Exactly. It's
et
very
cetera,
the
et
thing.
cetera.
Yeah.
And it's just the thing.
Yeah, totally.
It's kind of like, you watch it and you're like, I don't know how you didn't get sued. Like,
I
but-
mean, I've also done my share of ripoffs. I wrote a
no,
whole.
that's fine.
I wrote a
mean,
whole feature that was kind of an Exorcist 3 ripoff, so I
yeah,
got it.
It's fine. Yeah. But we're actually coming up on time.
Okay.
But what I just one second to last question: are you planning on working on any film projects in the near future? I know you're getting back into film.
I've been thinking a lot about it, and I've been very enamored with silent films lately. My girlfriend and I were in ancient, like not ancient, like classic literature class where we
Sure.
looked at pieces about epic journeys, everything from like the Odyssey to Paradise Lost. And when we were reading Dante, we stumbled on this like 1911 silent film based on Inferno, and it was Italy's first feature.
Oh, wow.
And it was made with the intention of making the viewer fear God, according to Bernolini, the director of the film. And
That's awesome.
I think, as a heathen, if I were a Catholic, I would not have had a good time with it. It would have been very scary. But I've been thinking about silent films a lot. I've been thinking about that form. a friend who makes music under the moniker Gurgler, and I have been playing some like experimental classical shows.
Mm-hmm.
It does like uh, noise music and not noise music really, but like music concrete kind of stuff. And I was talking about doing a silent film that it would do a live score to, like how it used to be done, where like it would just be in the front of the stage as the film was being played.
Mm-hmm.
And
That'd
that's
be
an
cool.
avenue I'm thinking of pursuing, making just like maybe a short thing, maybe a long thing. I don't really know, but
That'd be cool.
that's been an idea that hasn't left my head.
Something new.
Yeah. Um,
That's neat.
yeah. I'm hoping to have time to make films again
Yeah.
one day.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is I come up with ideas and I'm like, oh, but that would take so long to make that reality, and I don't have that time.
And once I'm out of college, I can probably throw myself to the wind like I did with Heart, but like
Yeah.
in college,
But not-
especially
not
because my
now.
college doesn't like to use their film.
Stuff.
Yeah, they don't like to use their facilities, especially when they have really good facilities. They hate that. So I can't really do that in college either.
And then just as we close out here, as I asked all of my guests, what are you looking forward to? Could be something that we talked about, something in your own life, something in the world, just something positive in the future.
I'm hosting Ritual for the first time in my life this Saturday, and I'm
What is
excited
that?
about
Tell me about that. What does that mean?
I'm doing a ritual to Loki,
Mm-hmm.
the heathen, and it's just going to be a ritual mainly like in prayer for trans people and that sort of thing. We're gearing up for a scary time,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to honor I want to honor a deity that has meant a lot to trans heathens for a long time, even back to antiquity, really. If we can extrapolate that, like trans members of the Germanic tribes are fans of Loki worship. You know, it's going to be about that. I'm offering one of those cans of alcoholic Monster to Loki because I think they would like that. So
Oh yeah.
that's the plan. That's something I'm looking forward to.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I hope that's meaningful for you.
Yeah. I'm intimidated, but also
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope it goes well.
thank you.
Good luck. I guess I don't know what the proper.
I think good luck is yeah.
Good luck. But yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. It's good
Yeah,
talking.
thank you so much for having me. That was
Yeah.
great.
All right. Bye, everyone. Bye.